Hey guys, today we're going to go over a new daily bias on the euro dollar, and also we're going to review the dollar yen setup. Now be sure to watch this review section because you want to remember that markets tend to repeat itself, and reviewing these setups is going to let you be more comfortable the next time a similar setup forms. Okay, so just think of it as an investment for future trades. Alright, so let's start off with the dollar yen. Okay, this is a daily chart. Let me run you by the setup I was looking at. So the last daily short trade, that form was right here. And the last daily long trade, that form was right here. And so the daily risk parameters was between this pivot high and this pivot low right here. And so for the last couple of weeks, as price ranged about, I was waiting for the lower confirmation to confirm this bias, whether long or short. However, this week price went up to one of its risk parameters at this level. And so at this point, this bias is reset back to neutral. And I'll be waiting for a new daily or weekly bias to form on this pair. Okay, but for educational purposes, let's go ahead and see what happened on the lower time frames in this area. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, those daily risk parameters was between this pivot high and this pivot low right here. And after that daily long trade formed in this area, right in these areas and these areas right here, price was trying to make lower confirmation. However, due to aesthetic reasons, lower confirmations did not form in either of these areas. And as price came up to these levels right here, just last week, there was actually 15-minute lower confirmation of strong long strength, which confirmed this bias to be long. However, either way, this was untradeable, because if the bias was confirmed to be long at this point, I would have needed a nice pullback all the way down to these levels, because the stop loss for that daily bias will be right here and the main target will be right here. Okay, so either way, there was no way to enter this setup. And just a couple of days ago, one of the risk parameters were touched at this point. Okay, so just remember that although I only show the 1-hour and 4-hour lower confirmations on these analysis, the even lower time frame confirmations do form. And if you have any questions about that, just let me know, guys. Okay, so I'll keep you guys updated when a new daily or weekly bias forms on this pair. All right, let's go on to the euro dollar. Okay, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of biases and lower confirmations, please check out my analysis manual, which is an instruction book for these analysis. Okay, and the link for that is in the details section of this video. Okay, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this price action right here is very strong short, and this new pivot right here not showing any strong signs of this short strength waning, in the long term, I am short biased. Right back down to this pivot low right here. And moreover, on the daily chart, there was a short trade that formed and a long trade that formed right here. And I'm currently waiting for the lower time frame confirmations to confirm this bias. And so in the short term, I'm neutral biased. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, so on this daily chart, the last daily short trade that form was right here. And the last daily long trade that form was right here. And so the daily risk parameters is between this pivot high and this pivot low. So let's go ahead and find out what's providing short strength and long strength for this bias. Let's go over to the monthly chart. All right, so on this monthly chart, that daily short trade formed in this area, and that long trade formed in this area right here. Now we have this small gap right here providing short strength. And moreover, there's actually a weekly legitimate trend line that runs right through this level, also providing short strength. However, simultaneously, we have this small gap right here creating long strength for this short trade. Okay, so we have to subtract this long strength from the total short strength right here. Okay, so in its totality, the daily short trade right here only has very slight short strength on it. Okay, in terms of long strength, there's actually no price elements providing any long strength for it. Okay, so keeping this in mind, let's go ahead and sum up the total strength. Let's go back to the daily chart. Okay, so back on this daily chart, through those monthly price elements, we only had a little bit of short strength for this short trade right here. But we also have to keep in mind this daily candle also. So this full candle right here does add short strength for the short trade. And moreover, this nice rejection candle right here also adds a good amount of long strength for this daily long trade. Okay, so in its totality, I would say that there's slightly more short strength than long strength for this daily bias. Okay, but that said, the price elements only provide the initial outlook of a bias, and the lower time frame confirmations have the ultimate say. And so in other words, initially, this daily bias seems to be short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high, but the lower confirmations must confirm that to take a trade. So let's go ahead and see what's happening there. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, that daily bias's risk parameters is again at this pivot high and this pivot low. And at the current moment, there's only a possibility of lower confirmations confirming long strength. And that's if price could come up to this trend line, break it out, and immediately break back in. However, price could still push up to that pivot high. That'll create strong long strength and confirm this bias to be long. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. Okay, so even if the initial price element analysis shows that bias to be short, if the lower confirmations confirm this bias to be long, I'm more than willing to confirm that daily bias to be long. Okay, so the lower confirmations always have the ultimate say. Okay, so we'll just see what happens on the lower confirmations for this setup, and I'll keep you guys updated. Okay, that's it for the analysis, guys. One thing I do want to mention about strategies, whether you use my strategy or not, is that any strategy, in order for it to be effective in the long term, it needs to have 3 elements to it. Now, number 1 is that it needs the ability to predict the future direction of price. And number 2, it needs a stop loss level. And number 3, it needs a target. And a strategy that doesn't have any one of these elements will most likely fail in the long term. Okay, so in the short term, you might make some profits, but you got to remember that trading is a long-term game. So you need a strategy that gives you the ability to consistently increase profits over the long term. Okay, because I mean, what's the point of making $5 today just to lose $5 5 years down the line, right? Okay, so remember that a strategy that's effective in the long term, it has to have those 3 elements. Okay, and moreover, in my opinion, a mandatory characteristic that a trader must have in order to implement a strategy effectively is patience. Okay, so let's say you have a strategy, right, that has those 3 mandatory elements. It predicts the future direction of price, a stop loss level, and a target. Now, if the trader doesn't have the patience to implement that strategy, and changes the way you implement that strategy due to impatience, well, then it's pretty much like not having a strategy that's effective to begin with. Okay, so putting this into an analogy, it's like the counterpuncher, right? So in boxing or any type of martial art, in order for a counterpunch to be effective, the martial artist has to have that patience in order to make the counter strike effective, right? And no matter how well his counterpunch strategy was planned, if he doesn't have that patience, it's the same thing as not having a plan at all. Okay, so that's just some things to keep in mind, and let me know what you guys think about that too. What do you guys think is the most important characteristics of traders? Okay, all right, so that's it for this weekly analysis. I hope you guys have a great week, guys. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.